Let's be honest, most people don't read terms and conditions. They're long, boring, and often written in a way that feels like they're designed to scare you away. But here is the truth. You don't need to read everything, you just need to know which parts actually protect you and your money. In this video, I'll show you which sections of online shopping terms you should always check, which ones you can skim, and which ones you can safely ignore. Hi, my name is Joanna and this is WebshopSavvy, where we talk about online shopping done safely and confidently. There is a myth that being a smart shopper means reading 40 pages of legal text. It's not needed. Of course, I do recommend reading terms and conditions at least once in your lifetime, just to see what they look like. But smart shopping isn't about reading for hours. It's about prioritizing risk. So let's break it down. The most important section is returns and refunds. This becomes especially important when you shop from foreign countries, far away from home, where the legislation and even more importantly, the commercial culture can be very different from what you're used to. First, always check whether returns are allowed at all. In the EU, the law protects you. In many other parts of the world, that's not necessarily the case. Let me share my personal example. I once bought a dress from an online store in China. Returns were technically allowed, but only the seller accepted your reason. The dress itself was fine, it was actually great, but it had an underskirt. I didn't know about this underskirt when I bought it. And that underskirt was so tight, I couldn't make a step. The seller told me my reason for returning wasn't good enough, because the dress size was listed. Yes, but the underskirt size wasn't. That kind of arbitrary decision simply isn't compatible with the EU law. Once I pointed that out and mentioned I'd leave a public review, the seller suddenly became much more cooperative. So remember this, some shops technically allow returns but make them so difficult, so expensive or so slow that people just give up. Another very important point, in the EU, online shoppers have a legal right to cancel their order within 40 days without giving any reason. It's the so-called cooling off period. This is a statutory right. It's not something the shop chooses to give you, it's something the law gives you. So when you check the terms and conditions, look for a clear explanation of this right and how to exercise it. If it's vague, hidden or not mentioned at all, that's a red flag. Be extra careful with shops outside of the EU. They're not legally required to offer you this right, so you really need to read their return policy carefully. A few more things to always check. For example, how much time do you have to return the item? 14, 30, sometimes even 100 days. Is that time counted from when the item is shipped or when you receive it? Who pays for return shipping? If you return something at your own cost, always use a reliable courier and make sure you have tracking and proof of delivery. Also, pay attention to how refunds work. Isn't it funny how quickly shops can charge your card, but the refund suddenly takes up to 2 weeks? They usually blame the banks, but somehow charging never seems to be a problem. Finally, check how you get your money back. Is it refunded to your original payment method, or do you get a store credit? Store credit can be fine if you shop there often, but it shouldn't be your only option. To summarize, if returns are unclear, hidden, or full of exceptions, pause before buying. Next, delivery and responsibility. I'm not going to bore you with Incoterms, but if you ever dealt with them, you know how important it is to understand who is responsible for the shipment and when. The key question is, when does the responsibility transfer? Is it when the item is shipped or when you actually receive it? In most EU cases, the seller remains responsible until the package is delivered to you, whether at home or at the pickup point. This matters if a parcel is lost or arrives damaged. Here is another personal example. Many years ago, I bought a piece of furniture from the US, a bar cabinet. the responsibility transfer was agreed at the curb, meaning once the delivery was accepted, any damage became my responsibility. When the delivery arrived, my husband noticed the packaging was already cut. Before signing anything, we contacted the seller and agreed on a plan. We'd accept the delivery, unpack it while documenting everything, and see what condition it was in. The cabinet was indeed damaged, not badly, but visibly, right on the front. Returning it would have been very costly for the shipper, so we agreed on the partial refund of 40%, and I kept the item. The takeaway here is simple. If the shop pushes all responsibility to the courier or recipient, that's a warning sign. Now let's talk about subscriptions and pay later options. Most surprise charges aren't scams, they're written into the terms. Many services start with a free trial, but when you sign up you already agree that the subscription will automatically continue unless you cancel in time. It's very easy to forget and then suddenly you're charged. Here's a quick example, my personal experience. I once almost subscribed to a learning app that looked really fantastic. Just before paying, I checked the reviews, and I'm glad I did. Most complaints were about how impossible it was to cancel a subscription. Subscriptions would renew even after cancellation, there was no real customer service, there were only bots and unanswered emails, nobody picked up the phone. When it comes to pay later services like Klarna, timing is everything. If you return items, make sure you do it within the set deadlines, otherwise you may still be charged or even pay interest. The simple rule here is, if you don't know when or how money leaves your account, that's a red flag. Now a section many people ignore, but really shouldn't, the privacy policy. I'm not saying you should read the whole thing, it's long and boring, but here's why it matters. If a web shop sells to EU customers, it must follow GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, even if the shop is based outside of the EU. The privacy policy is a legitimacy check. Your data isn't just your email address, it's your identity, your behavior, and sometimes even your payment information. So what should you quickly check? First, is there a real privacy policy at all? If there is no link, or the link is broken, or just a few vague lines like, "We respect your privacy," all those are red flags. A proper policy should clearly state who the data controller is. It should state the company name, address, contact details, and often a registration number. If that information is missing, ask yourself whether you're comfortable with your data being handled, whether you consent for your data to be potentially sold without any transparency. And always remember this, if a web shop is careless with your data, it's usually careless with everything else too. Some sections rarely affect normal shoppers. You can usually skim long definition sections, technical availability clauses, website access rules, generic legal disclaimers. These exist mainly to protect the company legally, not to trick you as a consumer. So here is the WebshopSavvy rule. If returns, refunds, delivery responsibility, payments and privacy are clear and fair, you're probably dealing with a legitimate shop. If they're vague, hidden or confusing, slow down. Terms and conditions don't exist to scare you. They exist to tell you who takes responsibility when something goes wrong. And now you know exactly where to look. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, comment and share. It really helps WebshopSavvy reach more consumers who want to shop safely and confidently. Knowing your rights help. But here's the thing. Most shopping decisions aren't made with logic alone. In the next video, I'll show you why online shopping is often more about psychology than reason, and how that affects what ends up in your cart. Until then, stay safe and warm, and see you next week.